Hey there, my fellow intellectuals. Kyle here with another PhDiary entry. This is number two, and it's the second day of the quarter. So I'm 2 for 2 so far. Let's see how good I can keep up this trend. But nonetheless, I am underway on the path to getting my PhD by the end of this quarter. It's kind of surreal now that I think about it. It's kind of surreal that I'm even making this series, to be honest. I had like no intention of filming that much this quarter because I'd be so busy. But the first video was fun. I just uploaded it to YouTube, so go check that out if you want some context as to why I'm even doing this in the first place. And let's just get right down to it, shall we? What did I do today? So, I did not spend 10 and a half hours in my office today, like I did yesterday. It was probably closer to like 7, but nonetheless, still productive. And I realized something today that helped me get a lot of work done. And that realization was very simple but very profound. It was I was doing everything out of order now that I look back on it. Now, what do I mean? So, just to give you some context, from the first PhDiary entry, I talked about how I'm in the process of writing my dissertation. And in physics and astronomy, the dissertation is essentially just a collection of pretty much all of your papers, if you've written papers, and everything else that didn't get into paper form. So I've written 2 papers in graduate school. One is published, one is in the editing stage right now. It's being sent out to all the other co-authors. There's about I think 11 of them on this paper, and I was hoping to have the paper all edited, I can't say that word, edited before I put it into my dissertation. But I'm still waiting to hear back on some co-authors. Now, I came to the realization that, you know what? Finishing this paper really isn't a requirement for me to get my PhD. I mean, that is just sort of like an icing on the top, if you know what I mean. But the PhD dissertation, that's what's going to let me graduate. So I was like, why are you waiting to transfer anything from the second paper into your thesis? Because the thing is, I was going to wait until everything was edited before I put it in the thesis, but it really now makes a lot more sense to just have the paper in its current rough form in the thesis. I mean, it can just sort of just be in there. It doesn't have to be a finished product. And then go back and start editing the paper because like I said, the dissertation is what's the most important thing. It's called prioritizing, Kyle. I know, right? 5 years in grad school, haven't figured out prioritizing yet, but I just had this realization and I was like, wow, I really should just put in the rough paper into the thesis right now because then like the thesis will be like I don't know, 70% done by today in a rough form. And that's what I did. So I put in the contents of the second paper, not all of it, I'm still working on it, but I got a really good start on that. And I was just realizing, wow, this dissertation becomes a lot more manageable and a lot less stressful the more you see it fill up. Like it's just a psychological thing to see that dissertation get longer and longer and longer. Now, one thing that people might be wondering is that if, is there some sort of page or word requirement in this thesis? No, there is actually not for our department at least, which is kind of nice. It can be as long or as short as it needs to be. I was once browsing in the UC Irvine libraries looking at some dissertations. I was actually looking for one dissertation of a professor of mine who went to UC Irvine as well, so I found that was kind of cool. But I found another dissertation that I I just thumbed through and I saw it was like only like 45 pages and it was a PhD dissertation. So, there is no hard requirement for that. So right now, as it stands, I think my dissertation PDF is like 90 pages, more or less. But that's like including the bibliography and some extra stuff that I'm going to have to change. Like I haven't finished obviously writing the whole thesis yet, but it's already at like 90 pages, which is kind of cool. And I don't know, I just made this simple change. I was kind of stressed after yesterday because I was stressing out and I was telling myself, how am I going to be able to get this all done? I don't have the second paper all edited yet. And then this morning, it just hit me. I don't need to have it all edited. I can just put it in the rough draft form into the thesis. I know this probably sounds so simple, but I have this thing about me where I just really don't like to deviate from the order of how I do things. Like when I have a schedule, I don't like deviating at all. It actually is one of the most difficult things for me to do because I'm just so sort of set in the schedule that I set for myself, and I don't give myself the flexibility to change or shift direction. But today I gave myself that permission, and I said to myself, you know what? This PhD is your ticket to graduate. It's not the second paper. You could have the second paper, and it very well could end up in the thesis in its final form, but just put it in the dissertation while it's still rough, and then come back and edit it if you have the time. I know, very profound, very profound. So, if there's anything you take away from this video, it's priority management and being willing to be flexible with your plans because I think I've been this way ever since I was young, but I have very perfectionist kind of tendencies and I just want things done a certain way. But when it comes to writing a PhD thesis or dissertation, a good thesis is a done thesis or a completed thesis. And right now, I really need to have a completed thesis. And I can have a completed thesis pretty soon if I just make that my priority. And why has it been so difficult for me to do this? I wonder. I think part of me really wanted to have two papers done by the end of grad school, like done as in submitted and published. And the more that I think about it, the less likely that looks like it's going to happen. But there was, like I said, this is not a requirement. This is just a my own personal goal. But what's more important, me publishing two papers or me graduating with my PhD? And it's definitely me graduating with my PhD. And it's not like I can't publish the paper after my PhD. That happens a lot actually. A lot of things at the end of a PhD get converted into a paper eventually, sometimes really quickly after the end of a PhD. So perhaps I was just being perfectionist for no good reason whatsoever, just to be a perfectionist. And I think today the lesson is don't be such a perfectionist. Just get it done. So, yeah, that was the big realization today for me. And I hope you find that useful in your own PhD studies or in anything in life, honestly. Priority management is a very valuable skill to have. So, anyways, that is going to do it for the video. I think that pretty much summarizes my realization today. And I hope you found this useful and entertaining. And I will see you in the next video.